All right, how much does it cost to renovate a house? That is one of the titles that I'd like to talk about. So, how much does it cost to renovate a house? And that is entirely dependent on the condition of that house. So, I think if you are looking to get into real estate, one of the best things that you could do is just start researching and figuring out very specific items. So, how much is it going to cost for a new furnace? That's going to get you a wide range based on whether or not any ductwork is needed, what size furnace you need, and what style furnace you would like. But you can get kind of a ballpark or an average for that. And on your first couple of properties, I'd be very conservative. So if somebody, tells you that on average it costs $5,000 to replace a furnace, just add another thousand, maybe $1,500 to that, and budget $6,500 for the replacement of that. And then as you're walking through any of the properties that you're interested in, you can go ahead, mark $6,500 for a new furnace if you're looking at an old furnace inside of a house. Same with a roof. You can figure out what roofers charge, like per square, which is how some of them calculate it. But that is also dependent on how many layers that roof has and if any decking needs to be replaced under the shingles. So just getting an average. Maybe big roof, 13,000, small roof, 5,000. Figure out what size roof that is and be conservative by kind of padding those numbers a little bit. And I think if you're too conservative, what you're going to realize is that none of the deals make sense and somebody else is going to buy them before you do. So in the event that you start to experience that, maybe try to get a little bit more granular in your approximations and figure out how to get more close to a realistic price. And a lot of this comes with experience. And, very regularly, one of our main problems is that we go over budget on our rehabs because, we purchased one property, it was occupied when we purchased it. They moved out shortly after we purchased it. And lo and behold, we went to rehab it and all the exterior walls kind of started flapping in the wind. Some of the seal plates had rotted out. So we had to fix a lot of those items before we rented it out again. And obviously, that's not something that you could necessarily check for until you start pushing on the walls, demoing, the existing kitchen and stuff like that. So it's almost impossible to accurately budget for all of the variables that could go wrong. However, you can get pretty close by being really familiar with what it costs. So also flooring, you could get some estimates on that. We are generally around $4.50 per square foot installed. That's materials and labor. That's kind of what we budget for. You can take things like that and, very quickly start on a short list, figure out about how much it's going to cost you to rehab a house just by, walking through it and looking at all the things that you can see. And if you want to be really conservative, you can add like a unforeseen budget, kind of a miscellaneous line item for things that might come up, a contingency, if you will. But again, you want to be careful on how conservative you're being, lest you make yourself not competitive. So it's a fine line, and it is extraordinarily in the air based on the property it is that you're looking at. And I would also like to just kind of bring back and mention that we didn't do our first rehab project until we had 20 properties. So I just mentioned that we purchased a package of 13 in 2018, and it was a package because there was one horrible property in there that I really didn't want to own, but that was our first rehab project. So we had over 20 properties. Our 21st property was our first rehab project. So there's no shame in buying like turnkey only properties to get to and build a portfolio of like critical mass, because it's pretty complicated. And rehabbing a property successfully, especially if you're not going to do a lot of the work yourself, is going to require that you lean on a lot of really good relationships from contractors. And if it's your first couple of rehabs, the chances of you getting taken advantage of by a contractor, paying more than you should, all those are really high. So if you don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do a project, I would recommend buying a property that needs very little work. They're very predictable. If you buy a property move-in ready, it'll be cash flowing faster. It'll appraise easier. The bank will lend on it easier. That's what I would suggest if you're not too familiar.
Thanks for watching that clip. I thought that was a good question. And I think you can ask good questions too. Join us every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live stream Q&A where we answer plenty of questions just like this one. In the meantime, consider subscribing to the channel if you want more of this content. And if you want to increase your deal flow, analyze properties better, and help me feed my family, click the link below for a free 7-day trial of PropStream.